I've mentored startups and SMEs for about 15 years and probably helped at least 200 entrepreneurs during that time. I operate on an informal basis, therefore they use me as and when they want to, and they can terminate the relationship whenever they want to, as can I. I operate also on a semi-philanthropic basis. Therefore, I'll give them 2 or 3, 4 hours time free of charge initially. That gives them a chance to find out whether I'm going to add any value to their business or their business idea. But thereafter, I'll charge, but I charge on nominal rates. So for pre-revenue startups, I'll charge them £20 an hour. For an established SME, I'll probably charge them £45 an hour. Charging is important for 2 reasons. One, it instills a bit of discipline into the relationship. But secondly, if you offer something for free, it just doesn't get valued, as is well known. The mentees approach me principally through 3 ways. First, I've got a cheap and cheerful website which generates inquiries. Secondly, it's word of mouth recommendation. And thirdly, just occasionally, I hold free Meet the Mentor events, and sometimes 1 or 2 of them want to take me on, having met me, for 45 minutes. The mentees, they come in all shapes, sizes, ages, sexes. Overall, women tend to be more inclined to see value in a mentor than men do. But I'm equally comfortable dealing with a 20-year-old as I am a 60-year-old. I left the law because I wanted to have a second business career, but I found it was very difficult to map out or plot what that second career was going to be whilst you're working full-time. And secondly, because your mind is in corporate land, or in my case, professional services land, and it's very difficult to adjust your mindset whilst you're still working all hours of the day. So for me, it was a case of leaving the law eventually, and then beginning to get your brain around what do I do next and how do I achieve it. And I got involved in all sorts of different ventures. I ended up investing in some startup businesses. I worked for those startup businesses. I then stumbled into mentoring purely by accident because I did somebody I knew a favour who was having problems at the time with their business. I started up and ran single-handedly my own business, learnt from that the old saying, running a business is a very lonely affair. And I quickly learnt that anybody and everybody could do with a mentor. And there were more than one occasion when I sat here and thought, I could really do with speaking to somebody and getting a second opinion from them on issues. The role of a mentor really is to act as a sounding board, and I give objective, impartial feedback to the mentee. They bowl you any and every subject known to man. Some of the subjects I'm not so good at, and if it's not a forte or if it's a subject that I feel uncomfortable about, well then I'll say to them up front that I might not be the best person to deal with. But a lot of the input I give my mentees tends to be strategic. So it could be all about target markets, it could be talking about how do we access a market, and sometimes I'll simply act as a roving ambassador for the mentee. And finally, the key really to it is trust and judgment. You need to earn your mentees' trust, and you need them to trust your judgment. And if you generate that in a mentee, then you'll have probably a pretty lengthy relationship with them. Some of my mentees go back 11, 12 years. So I've seen one mentee from a pre-revenue startup through to now a 5 million turnover business. Sometimes some mentees just use you for a period of 3, 4, 6 months, and then they just disappear off into the distance and you never see or hear from them again. But that doesn't bother me. I'm fine with that. But above all else, mentoring, it's hugely satisfying, very fulfilling, and I'd recommend it to anyone to do. I think you need to compare the role of a mentor with the role of a non-exec director. A non-exec director is an insider. He's on the inside of the company. So up to a point, he's got to mind his P's and Q's. In contrast, a mentor is an outsider. So the mentor is free to say and do whatever he or she wants. And that actually is fairly core or fundamental to the relationship. Now, subject to that, in terms of top tips, I always, when I get approached by a prospective mentee, I always offer to give them a signed NDA, confidentiality agreement, and most of them take it up. Secondly, before I meet them for the first time, I always ask them to send me whatever papers they can, whether it be a draft business plan, and also an indication of the sort of issues, areas they want to discuss with me, on the basis that they'll get far more out of the first meeting that way. Secondly, I always agree to meet them on a no fee, no charge basis. And then finally, I think if you once get going with your mentoring relationship, be open, be honest, be straightforward. And there are occasions when you need to speak some harsh truths, but you need to choose your words carefully when you do that. So don't be too brutal about it.
Julian, some mentors talk about taking a stake. Do you ever take a stake in a business?
No, I'd never take a stake in a mentee's business. Principally because you can fall into a conflict of interest situation very easily. Because in effect you'd be wearing two hats. You're wearing your mentor's hat, where you're meant to be giving objective, independent advice to them, but in the next breath you'd be wearing your shareholder's hat. And I've seen situations develop where the mentor come shareholder suffers a real conflict of interest. So, for example, if your mentee needs to raise money quite quickly and is forced to go to his or her bank to extend the overdraft, or alternatively raise money from the shareholders, what are you going to say to that mentee if you're both mentor and shareholder? As mentor, you'd say, go to the shareholder. As shareholder, you'd say, go to the bank because I don't want to stick any more money in. Clear conflict.